From Houston Texans Training Camp, it's Coors Light Houston Texans Training Camp. Powered by Geico on Pat Booker Road. By Encira. Find out more at Encira.com. And by Muscle Milk. 1250 ESPN San Antonio, your home for the Houston Texans.
1250 ESPN San Antonio. Dat Nguyen, Jason Minnix at Houston Texans Training Camp with the boss man, GM Rick Smith, joining us. Now, we talk to you every year when we come down, and, every year you talk about getting better and getting better. And this year, watching these two rookies, your first two picks, Hopkins and Swagger. But Swearinger, they look good. Little Swagger, I got a man crush on Hopkins. I got to be honest with you.
Well, I tell you what you saw in the game is what he does every day out in practice, which is why so many people are excited about him. He does something every day, whether it's the way he comes out of a break or the way he catches a ball or a one-handed grab or something that reminds you why you felt so good about him in the draft.
You look at these young guys, and when you go through the process of drafting these young guys, because the college game has changed so much, what is the most challenging thing the process that you go through before the draft?
Well, I mean, the one thing that's important to us, we've got a group of guys at work. They understand that they've got to put the work in during the week to get a chance to be good on game day. And so we look and try to analyze that and try to pinpoint guys that football's important to them, that they're passionate about it, and that work ethic is something that's high on the priority list. And so, with those two guys that you just mentioned, and throughout our draft class, we really feel good about that part of their character.
Texans GM Rick Smith with us here on 1250 ESPN San Antonio. Rick, you look at most wide receivers, kind of a diva position. They're loud. They all want the ball. How do you have two that are very quiet?
It's interesting you asked that question because I was thinking about that. I was talking to my wife the other night, and I said, Andre he's just an anomaly. He's just, you don't find another one like him. We probably have the guy that's as close to him as possible. I mean, this guy he keeps his mouth shut. He goes about his business, and the thing I like about him is that he knows and he's aware that he's got a great example right there beside him, and he's humble enough and smart enough that he's just shut his mouth and he's watching and he's emulating and he's doing what Andre does.
And it's one thing for him to be that way in his first training camp as a rookie. I saw him the other night at the hotel in the lobby, just very polite to everybody he talked to, quiet, which did kind of surprise me some.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I mean, he comes from humble beginnings, and his mom is just an outstanding woman. She raised him right, and we're happy with him so far.
And you talking about some other young players, other draft picks that you had. There's two guys that's really been flashing out here, A.J. Boye and also Willie Jefferson. Can you share a little bit about how the process with those guys, because those are undrafted free agents?
Yes, very, very, very astute of you, because both those guys have been doing an amazing job. And you're right, it's those are the long shot guys, and then those are the guys that nobody really knows about. They don't talk a lot about them, but both those guys have done a nice job. And one thing that you can say here, we give our young guys opportunities, and so we do have 90 guys on the roster, but we find ways to get all those guys ample opportunities, and the guys that maximize on those opportunities, they have a chance to help us.
Rick Smith with us here on 1250 ESPN, the Texans GM. How much easier is it your job when the majority of the position battles here at camp, if not all of them, are backup positions?
Well, I tell you what, this job is never easy. We are always trying to figure out how to get better and what we can do to tweak. We just, we executed a trade the other day, and, it was a guy that's been around here for a couple of years, Jeff Mayo, and he's done a good job. I think he's good enough to play in this league, but it was a situation where he was going to have a hard time making our club, and it's a great opportunity for him to go back with his head coach from college, and an opportunity for us to get a good young offensive line prospect back that quite honestly wanted to put him on our practice squad last year. When we released him at the 53 cut down, Philly claimed him, and so he spent last year with them. But for us to get an opportunity to get him back and put Jeff in a good situation, it was good.
Well, you're talking about that trade. It was unusual because we were at practice and we saw him catching some balls through the walkthrough, and all of a sudden we saw the news that it flashed that he was traded. So this process, though, it is not just an overnight or it just happened. How long does a process like that usually happen?
Well, I had been talking with Howard Roseman probably for about a week or so, and just not necessarily knowing if it was something that was going to happen, but just kind of talking and getting the ball rolling a little bit, and and then as all those things kind of work in a negotiation, you say, okay, it's time to pull the trigger. Let's pull the trigger. So, it's good for him. I think it's a good situation for him.
And obviously, when you make a trade, you're uprooting two guys, and they got to pack up and go. Is that one of the hardest part about your job, especially in training camp, knowing that there's a lot of guys out here that aren't going to be in the league in a couple of weeks?
Well, that part of it, that particular situation wasn't as difficult as cut day. You know, I do not enjoy when we cut down to 75 and then we cut down to 53, because it's just telling guys not necessarily that they're not good enough to play in our league, but just that this particular situation is not going to work out for them. The other day in the trade, I think it was good for everybody. I think Jeff was excited about his new opportunity, and certainly we were excited to get, you know, our young man back. And so that one was a little different than cut down day.
You know, you talk about that cut down day to 53, and that's sometimes we miss on some guys. It's obviously how it is. The business is so hard. What do you tell those guys? Because really, you're telling those guys, hey, your dream's kind of ending. You know, I mean, do you work? What do you tell those guys, and what do you give them some pointers for the future?
Well, I tell you what, Dad, I'm honest with them.
Yeah.
And if I don't think that they have a future, I'm honest about that, and I give them constructive feedback in terms of why I think that's the case. But more often than not, it's just it's a function of numbers. It's a function of the situation. So most of the time, my message to them is that this does not mean that your NFL career is over. It just means that at this particular time, in this situation, it's not working. It doesn't mean that we can't bring you back. You know, I have that conversation with a lot of guys that, hey, listen, you stay in shape now, okay? Because if you don't get an opportunity somewhere else, depending on what happens here with injury, with performance, we could very well bring you back. So make sure you leave the building professionally in a good way so that everybody feels good about bringing you back in.
Do you have those conversations one-on-one, or do you have somebody else do it?
No, I think it's important. I do that. I do that, and I think it's important that they understand the decision process, why we made the decision, because it's their life. You know, it's what they have worked extremely hard in their entire lives to do, and so I think they deserve that conversation with me.
Texans General Manager Rick Smith with us here on 1250 ESPN San Antonio. Rick, you look at the NFL, a lot of changes, you know, some of the new rules, the whole crown rule with running backs. How much time in training camp do you guys spend on the new rules?
Well, the NFL sends out a video, and all of our players have watched that video, and all of our coaches understand. Back in the spring, members from the NFL officiating department came to make sure that our coaches understood. And prior to that, at the owners' meeting, at the league meetings, you know, we meaning the competition committee, as I'm a member of, presented to the coaches and to the general managers and all the football operations people, you know, the rules. And so they have been exposed to, you know, the coaches have been exposed to the changes multiple times, and our players have been exposed to it multiple times through the video and through our coaches talking about it. So they're pretty familiar with everything that we're doing.
You're talking about the rule change, and there's a couple other rules in this new CBA, the way they practice it. Are you agreeing what, or you accept what's going on? Because the game has changed so much. You know, 2 days, you used to go 2 days, and now you go 1 day, you do so much walkthrough. Is that a good thing for the NFL?
Well, I think it was important for the players from their perspective that we don't overwork them. And so, you know, to the degree that most clubs were using all of the available days of OTAs and mini camps and training camps and all that stuff, probably not. So I think when we look at the research and where the game has changed in terms of preparation, the thing that I'm most concerned with as an evaluator and a talent, you know, a guy that's responsible for, you know, acquiring talent, is the player development piece. You know, we're losing opportunities to really develop players, and so that would be the thing that I think we just need to make sure that we continue to make sure that it's important and that it has its place as we, you know, continue to protect our players and take care of them. We also got to make sure that we're developing players for the game.
Houston GM Rick Smith here on the Blitz, and you talk about developing players. You guys have to do a lot of that because of all your starters and the contracts that you have, you know, spent on the starters. You've got a lot of young players with not a lot of experience backing them up. So is that where the player development side comes in for you in this organization?
Well, it does. I mean, and I think that's a function too of our scouting department. I think, you know, particularly our college scouting department, headed up by Mike McCagnon. They do an excellent job of identifying the guys that fit our system. And our coaches have done a nice job of communicating. I think we know what kind of players fit our system and scheme. I think those scouts know that, so they're able to identify those guys, and that gives us a chance to add players to our team that can come in and be successful. And then the other piece to that is our coaches. You know, we've got excellent teachers, and we've got guys that really know, you know, how to communicate the game and get it across to the players. And so, you know, that it's a function of all of those things, and all those things are important to winning organizations.
Rick Smith, always enjoy speaking with you. I know you still got family in San Antonio, right?
I sure do, and they're excited about the Texans coverage as it has increased over the years, and we're happy about that. So it's good to see you again.
See, now we just got to get you to have training camp or mini camp or something in the Alamo Dome, right?
I'm gonna leave that one alone.
Appreciate the time.
All right, thanks, guys.